In this final presentation, I'm going to explain and evaluate the impact of sport for development and how it links to wider development in genders. Kaufman et al. 2013 suggests that while the UN is set to ensure that 95% of the world's youth have accurate comprehensive HIV prevention, National Health Service reveal that only about 30% of young people today in low and middle income countries have comprehensive HIV prevention knowledge, and highlights the idea that sport role models, activities and metaphors could increase knowledge, improve attitudes and change behaviours related to HIV. This is an approach that is growing internationally. The Sport for Development website states that in Africa there are an overwhelming majority of sport grounds addressing health concerns with particular focus on HIV and AIDS. Most of these Sport for HIV prevention programmes centre their activities on sharing information and using sport and games to raise awareness for prevention measures to minimise the risk of contracting the virus. None of the sport-based programmes provide direct treatment, but rather focus on sports as a method of mobilising youth, women and at-risk target groups for health promotion, prevention and education. The website goes on to state that HIV and AIDS usually considered as a taboo subject, and the creation of safer and informal spaces to discuss HIV and AIDS through sport and games allowed young people to learn about the steps they can take to protect themselves from the disease and to avoid risky behaviour. The study conducted into Mercy Corps, the two of their programmes in Libya and South Sudan, showed that HIV knowledge and protection attitude levels of the participants were higher after being involved in their programmes. The use of sport in addressing HIV and AIDS does not only focus on the epidemiological aspects, but also the social impact of the disease and individuals in the communities as well. The EduSport Foundation was created by the bottom-up of individuals directly affected by HIV, who not only prioritise young people in the affected communities with life-saving information on preventative and protective measures, but also actively promote the social integration of HIV-positive individuals into the community through sport. A number of sport programmes target other communicable diseases such as malaria and use sport to raise awareness about prevention. Right to Play Thailand Migrant Sport Works programme focuses on using sport as a tool to teach children about infectious diseases. Experience shows that these programmes, which aim to short infection spread, along with the causes and symptoms, are also effective when physical activities and games are used to communicate these ideas. Partnerships between national health agencies and sport-focused organisations have attempted to provide children and youth with active learning modules in which to better retain and discuss abstract health concepts. The role of sport coaches as role models and mentors to provide vital component to HIV prevention programmes. These coaches can also be peers to other young people of similar age, which building relationships of trust can be easier. The programme have proven that most successful HIV and AIDS prevention have been those that emphasise developing strong leader coaches who offer support and guidance. Sportfordevelopment.org. According to Maurer et al. 2009, the focus on knowledge about HIV is given priority on assumptions that the ignorance that leads to widespread HIV and increased knowledge will elicit the aspects of prevention actions. Individuals reduce the risk of infection by personal application of the information. Formal settings such as churches and hospitals are used to deliver educational messages for prevention. Typically, the more information is given by adults such as nurses, doctors and teachers, and many campaigns are conducted through TV and printed media outlets. From the study, they found that the intervention of using peer coaches within football environment was more effective of transmitting HIV prevention knowledge, cognitions and perceptive behaviours. These results demonstrated that HIV education using peer coaches in sport can effectively reduce the risk of at-risk children from infection with HIV. Maurer et al. Focuses on the Emaima programme that takes advantage of the fact that playing football is the most popular sport in Africa. Incorporating the HIV message into practice sessions have demonstrated the effective way of transmitting information, positive attitudes and behavioural intentions at the at-risk youth. Using sport, or at least football, as a part of this approach may affect and demonstrate by the study using peers within the sporting context to spread information about appropriate prevention behaviours and involving children in learning the skills in a non-scary environment by anchoring education with sport may help to reduce the normative and cultural barriers about the sexual behaviour within these at-risk groups. These children are also able to belong to a group, make friends, enjoy being on a team and have fun, and also get opportunity to practice soccer skills and benefit from the HIV messages within the practice environment. The sports context itself may have been a major reason for the facilitating of individual change. Moving on to gender, analysis of gender differences often show disadvantage and weaker positions of women and girls in social, political, economical and educational issues. This is why there is a tendency for gender discussions and interventions to focus on correcting these imbalances. A large amount of research into the extent of why sport and physical activity has positive impact on health show that women's involvement in regular exercise enhances physical, mental and well-being. There is a large amount of evidence in both developed and developing countries reflecting the relationship between sports participation and social integration and social inclusion of women and girls. Access to safe space is becoming increasingly confined, restricted and enclosed and domestic as girls in developing countries reach adolescence. Evidence from sports programmes show that the activity can allow women and girls access safe social spaces in which they may exercise in control and ownership. The Sport and Development website mentions that the study into post-apartheid South Africa provide evidence that young women from different backgrounds could use football as a platform to engage with another, mentor each other, as well as develop friendships and strengthen relationships. Similar findings in Nigeria suggest that sport plays a crucial role in enhancing social cohesion and encouraging social interaction among young women and girls. The Matahari Youth Sport Association website suggests that the programme reveals that the girls' participation in football programme appears related to the way male football players perceive their roles. Boys have adopted positive, supportive attitudes towards girls' participation in the programme. Participation in programme has become equal within being aware of gender roles and norms. Sport also allows women to get a sense of leadership and achievement. The Sport for Development website states that evidence from developing countries indicate that sport programmes providing girls with opportunities to develop leadership skills. The Moving the Goalpost programme in Kenya provides opportunities for participants to complete in training as well as participate directly in developing organisations. The Go Sisters programme in Zambia works in a similar way to the others, and they implement this programme under the Girls Empowerment Through Sport concept. This allows girls to play, learn, exercise leadership roles, develop, discuss and have a space in which is usually taken away from them. The programme is run by girls, for girls, with girls. They also try and incorporate boys through a way of raising a generation that will appreciate and respect each other. In all of the girls' programmes, provision on the possibility to develop specialised skills in coaching, refereeing, training, league organisation, as well as the access to information on health and peer education is often a great value of participants of these programmes. Exposure to the competing internationally and seen adds boost to the public recognition of skills that women and girls can develop through sport. Savendra 2008 suggests that sport is still exemplified and upholds essential masculine traits and become a code of heterosexual male superiority and domination. Female participants in the world of sport put their femininity at risk and threaten the social order. Hence, female involvement in sport is often transgression that needs to be explained, encouraged, prevented or managed but somehow is not natural. They go on to say that sport is an embodied practice that may liberate girls from constraining hegemonic feminine ideals, empower them within their communities, provide positive health and welfare outcomes, and ultimately transform gender notions and overall economic, social and political development. Looking at the use of female role models, the case study into 23-year-old Zambian single mother Esther Piri in 2007, she retained the Women's International Boxing Federation junior lightweight title. This win marked a rise to the national fame and secured finance backing and continued to pursue into international boxing and triathlon status. Piri started boxing at the age of 16 when the NGO African Directions launched their AIDS prevention programme into the neighbourhood, which health, education and sports were combined. She was the only female at the boxing programme. Her success may inspire girls to become boxing champions, but also may inspire them to engage in other sport or any other physical activity that is currently dominated by men and by people of more advantaged socio-economic status. By encouragement, she also inspires them to refrain from behaviours and activities that would inhibit them from reaching their goal. In my previous video, I explained the effects of the 2016 Olympics being hosted in Brazil and how they were promised to develop in countries as a way of supporting development. Rostow modernisation theory highlights how traditional societies develop as a way to adopt the more modern practice. The theory explains that underdeveloped third world countries such as Africa have cultural and economical barriers that hold them back. They argue that developing countries were underdeveloped because of their traditional values, and in order to develop, the countries need to adopt Western cultures, values and industrialise in order to promote economic growth. In order to do this, they would need help from the Western governments and organisations in the form of aid and investment, Thompson 2017. To move from the transitional to take-off phase, countries need significant investment in such as the Olympics. The reduced cultural and economical barriers to development as the developing countries are becoming more like the West through the same process. Aid comes from a form of experience and money to support speedier transition to monitor consumer-based economy. Modernisation theory is useful in understanding why countries aspire to host major sporting events. Hosting events contributes to revigorating the physical infrastructure of the city or region through building of roads, airports, hotels, sports stadiums, amongst others, Livermore and Beacom 2012. This creates business and employment opportunities for the community, therefore standard of living are improved within the community around the event. The awarding of the rights to host the 2016 Olympics in Rio was perceived as a good step in to strengthen their connection between sport events, social development in the country, providing them to take into the take-off phase. Alternatively, the dependency theory suggests that such events can simply use as a platform of developing countries to exploit develop new markets for good. Underdeveloped countries are offered cheap labour and raw materials to the world market. These resources are sold in advanced economies in which they have means to transform them into finished goods. Underdeveloped countries end up purchasing the finished products at high prices, depleting the capita, and might otherwise devote the upgrading to their own productive capacity. Munro 2018. By promoting Olympic sports, we're effectively promoting Western liberal cultures and values, exactly the same way that Empire promoted British values and superiority. The developing countries remain poor due to neo-colonialism, and in order for these countries to develop, they need to break away from Western influence and find their own paths to development, such as socialism. At the 2016 Rio Olympics, sponsors such as Coca-Cola use the Olympics as no more than an advertising campaign for them to promote their products into the world. To conclude, sport and sport programmes are a thing of their own that help people much more than just the physical aspects. It helps with personal development through improving self-esteem and self-efficacy of participants. It teaches about health, gender equality and empowerment, which leads to more positive attitudes towards women's participation in sport and rights to education. The use of peer leaders recruited in the community can provide valuable role models for young people, especially girls and women, and can have the most constant and long-term impacts. Women win. Finally, it helps build a sense of community that is a great way for everyone to take part in something that they enjoy whilst being taught by coaches which are more effective than teachers. Mara et al. 2009. Therefore, I feel that sport has a big impact on how development is delivered in countries due to being a wide range of ways it can be used. Without sport, many of the SDGs and other issues may not be reached, as they won't be able to access in the countries, and teaching of children won't be as successful.